Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe. According to Big C and them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. You know, you good old boys up in Canada, we love you so much. We know that Canadian football has started for preseason, but I'm still going to tell you there's no one I love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Something is wet down there. We're not even drinking moonshine today. You know, 3 straight days of rain. You know, and humidity. I walk outside today. It's 78 degrees and raining. You know, I felt so sticky I almost took a shower today.
That sounds like Florida. Last time I was in Florida, I got out of the shower. I was more wet when I stepped outside on the hotel balcony than when I was in the shower, basically. That's how hot it is in the humidity down south with you good old boys. But today is a beautiful June the 6th, 2017. So many things happening in the world of sports. The Predators, you know, they did it without fish. I think them good old boys learned, don't throw fish on the hockey rink because it makes people slippery. Big C, they don't want to have any guys slipping. And the Predators are back on top. You know, the NBA, so much talk now about LeBron. Will he even be in Cleveland for next year? I think it's too early to talk about that. They just won the championship last year. Also baseball where Bryce Harper ended up fishing maybe up north with the Yankees, Big C. Also a lot of other good old things happening in the world of sports. But I want to get your thoughts on what's going on in your neck of the woods, Big C.
Well, Charlton, everybody's elated down here in the South, especially in the state of Tennessee, Nashville, for number one. You know, the Predators got off to an 0-2 start against the Penguins, and they won the last 2 games, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, on Golden Pond, you know, realistically.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was calling for Sukarov, the goalie, to be replaced in Nashville. But, you know, the last 2 games, he's ridden up and stymied the mighty Penguins offense. You know, he's left them without a prayer, you know, and last night, you know, the Predators just dominated the game offensively and defensively, Charlton. Both sides of the blue line. They just controlled it, and they made a complete series of this.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at it, the Penguins really are on the hot seat. They got to win 2 out of the next 3 games to win the Stanley Cup. But, you know, all the momentum right now is with the Predators and evening up the series, Charlton. The series now goes back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I tell you what, Big C, even though you sound like a fish get your microphone. Are you down there gutting some fish, Big C? I thought I heard you laughing. I thought I heard a fish grab that microphone. Some good old boys, they were listening to me do the show, and they say, is Big C eating fish while he's talking on the microphone? I said, you never know, Big C. That Escalade Parks itself. I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, we know the Escalade parks itself. Were you trying to eat and park at the same time, Big C?
Well, Charlton, we've done marvelous things with the Escalade, from hauling catfish in the back to going out picking up a wild boar here and there. But the Escalade, you know, my baby does what she needs to do to help me out throughout the day, throughout the week. You know, she's dependable, she's reliable, she's luxurious, and got a damn good sound system.
Yeah, I just wonder, can Cadillac drop the price so guys like me can buy one, Big C? That's what I want to find out. But also, when you...
Charlton, you know, think about it, we don't want everybody looking like us riding around.
That's right.
Vehicles out there that the general public can drive around. The Escalade is a thing of prestige.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's clean or dirty, it's prestigious. Everybody recognizes you when you're driving around, and especially us.
Yeah.
Everybody recognizes me and my baby when we're going up and down the street.
That's funny. Even POTUS drives one. I noticed the one that drives for POTUS, it has bulletproof glass and all kind of steel. And I hear that it's never dirty. They don't even let a speck of dust stay on the windshield for that car. Does your car ride anything like the one that POTUS rides when you have the, what's it called, Secret Service with your Big C?
He has one that's called the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
We're not as heavy as the Beast. We're a little more light-footed, so we're a little more mobile and agile. And we can get into places that the Beast can't get into.
Yeah.
I mean, we go out and hunt Beast every now and then. We're not the Beast.
That's funny, Big C. And speaking of the Beast, you know, I know we look at some things going on in the world of sports, but I still want to say that I think Comey's having this I guess a conference on Thursday. You know, he was fired by Donald Trump by finding out what's going on in Russia. Putin already had the transcripts on what happened, even though Donald Trump doesn't know if transcripts exist. But all he had to do is talk to his friend Putin. And it's funny seeing, I mean, it's not funny, but seeing our president set up by Vladimir Putin, and now America's pulling out of this G8 summit, which took a lot of years to put together. I heard Dan Rather talking on CNN just the other day, and he was saying how it took years to put together this summit and to have these countries that participate together. And it takes one person like Trump to tear it down, but that's a shame because we're trying to become a global community, but we have one person in the White House that wants to be kind of the oddball, even when it comes to defending our nation nationwide and worldwide. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about these, coalitions that the president is pulling out of.
Yeah.
That it's taken decades for all these countries to come together and be one coalition.
Yeah.
Uniformity is what the world is all about. And I understand what Trump's saying about make America first. But America has always been first. But
Yeah.
America's also needed the aid of its allies to stay where it is, and vice versa, Charlton. This is a unilateral, universal, agreement, accord that has been out there. And
Yeah.
you have one guy coming in who is operating as a businessman of a single company, not a worldwide entity, and not understanding how all these things are set up. I think most of all is what Trump has tried to do in his presidency is have his name on so many pieces of paper is that he becomes a significant part of history.
Yeah.
The problem with the history that he's trying to create, Charlton, is all negative history. We look for leadership from the White House. And, when we don't get leadership from the White House, this becomes a confused nation, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
He spends more time berating other countries than he does in assisting our own country. He's always talked about jobs pulling out of America, how he's going to stop this, how he's going to fine companies and do this. Just today, Charlton, Sears and Kmart announced the closing of another 78 stores, okay?
Did you say opening or closing of stores?
They're closing. Sears and Kmart combined said that they were going to close another 78 stores. Charlton, at the beginning of the year, they announced that they were closing 114 stores, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we saw what the president did when he went to Courier Air Conditioning and gave them a $7.5 million tax break.
Yeah.
And said, okay, I'm saving jobs. But he saved 300 jobs, and it cost $750 million to the taxpayers, okay? So I don't call that saving jobs overall because the taxpayers are paying for that.
Yeah.
Now that you get this second announcement from Sears and Kmart, used to be two of the largest retailers in America, talking about closing another 78 stores just today, Charlton.
Wow.
And they're going to do this in the next couple of months.
Wow.
I want to know where the president is now in talking about saving jobs, because you think about these two major retailers, Charlton, and each one of them each store employs several hundred employees each, okay?
Yeah.
So what is he going to do now about saving jobs in America? He started off with a lot of fanfare, and all he did, Charlton, was lit a candle, okay?
Yeah.
Now he needs to light a torch as far as saving jobs. I guarantee you, Charlton, over the next month, you will hear nothing from the White House about saving jobs with Sears or Kmart and those American employees. He keeps talking about the coal industry, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not berating the coal industry and those people who have lost their jobs in the coal industry, Charlton, but renewable resource energy has eliminated a lot of those jobs, and even coal mining has become a lot more efficient at this day and age than what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You don't need as much manpower. But my concerns are the lies that the president told, and now they're coming to fruition.
Yeah.
When you have 78 stores by two major retailers, on top of 114 that they closed earlier, Charlton, we're talking about, in essence, of 200 stores between Kmart and Sears being closed in the first 9 months of 2017, the reign of his presidency, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you think about the number of Americans that have become unemployed, and also if you look at the statistics on the employment numbers in America, there has been no increase in jobs in the last 3 months in America. It's been stagnant. And now that you got these two retailers with 78 stores closing, Charlton, think about the thousands of Americans that are going to lose their jobs. Where is the president now?
Yeah, and that's
Where's the president on saving jobs?
Yeah.
Where's the president on health care? Where's the president on tax reform? Where's the president now on helping the
Well, ironically, we have so many people right now that are interested in the sports world. A lot of smart people. I've seen so many people that follow sports and politics. The ones that have a brain can do that. If you don't have a brain, just keep looking for the score. But there's an article when you talk about President Trump and the jobs that are going away. I remember this same president is part of an issue that's happening to this day. I know we've talked about it over the last year, Big C, but it's rearing its ugly head again. It's about the NFL and how POTUS came out and said to every NFL owner, which all of them are Caucasian, every single one of them, all 32 of them, said don't hire Colin Kaepernick, which is a black man. And he said don't hire him not because he grabbed women by the vagina, not because he committed sexual assault, not because he has a domestic violence situation, but he's saying don't hire this black guy because he stood up for Black Lives Matter, and they tried to make it against the troops. Now, if the troops don't stand up for Black Lives Matter, I believe a lot of African Americans serve in our military, so that's just wrong that the media tried to spin it that way. But even today, I think there's an author by the name of Sean King who wrote an article that we talked about over the past couple of months. Will the African Americans that make up about 70% of the NFL, will they stand by while the president says to every owner in a threatening fashion, do not hire this black man because he cares about Black Lives Matter? That same issue was talked about with the Seattle Seahawks. Doug Baldwin brought it up too. I just want to get your thoughts. Are athletes just dumb? They just want to care about the game? Or do they realize that the president himself is saying don't hire anyone that cares about the lives of black men unless they're playing sports for us? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I'm going to put this on two levels. There's the idiocy of the African-American athlete in the NFL, and there's also the racism of the owners in the NFL. You think about the Seattle Seahawks, the only team to bring in Colin Kaepernick for a look, but yet they signed this kid named Austin Davis. Okay? Austin Davis, who played at Southern Mississippi some years ago, formerly of the Rams and the Cleveland Browns. Now, this kid, is 13 and 12 as a starter in the NFL in like 6 years. Okay? He's passed for some 2,400 yards. Colin Kaepernick, when you look at his overall record in the NFL, the number of playoff games that he has won, the yards that he's accumulated offensively, and the touchdowns that he has thrown and created with his legs, when you think about it, Charlton, there are not 32 better quarterbacks in the NFL than Colin Kaepernick. And that's just being realistic. I don't care how many people say, well, he's fallen off and, he's not the player he once was. There's not a quarterback out there that is the player that he once was. He hasn't gone undefeated since he had that one season. Okay? He hasn't completed a season, hasn't played 16 games in a long time. So, there's a lot of quarterbacks. Eli Manning still leads the league in interceptions every year, seems like. We look at Andrew Luck. People said he was the savior of the NFL. He hasn't completed a season. Matter of fact, he hasn't thrown a ball since his January shoulder surgery.
Wow, that's very true.
There's a lot of quarterbacks around. You look at the Cleveland Browns, Charlton. You tell me what quarterback on the Cleveland Browns roster is better than Colin Kaepernick. They brought in Osweiler. They got Hogan. They got the kid that played at SC. None of these players have the lineage or the pedigree of a Colin Kaepernick. When you look at their history, none of them have accomplished what he has accomplished. You even look at the Chicago Bears, who wasted a first-round draft pick on Trubisky. There's nobody on the Bears roster who is better than Colin Kaepernick. And you look at any of the teams, Charlton, that drafted in the top 5 in the NFL, maybe even in the top 10, Charlton, none of them have a quarterback that's better than Colin Kaepernick. You look at the New York Jets. They bring in McCown, a traveled veteran who has never been able to establish himself. You got 2 rookies, 2 second-year quarterbacks on the roster. Neither one of them can play. And here's Colin Kaepernick, in a major media market. But, this shows the prejudice of the owners more than it shows anything else, Charlton. People think that racism does not exist, and people, they're bringing that up. It's true. Because no one would have taken the stance against Colin Kaepernick. The NFL will hire a rapist. They will hire a female abuser. They will hire people who have been convicted of manslaughter. These are the people that the NFL will hire. But a man who stands up against the atrocities of a race in America, the NFL don't want to touch that. Because now all of a sudden the NFL says we have to recognize that. We have to recognize that society, there's something wrong. And that is the reason why Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job, because of the racism that exists in America. If someone signs Colin Kaepernick, then they have to admit that racism exists. And they don't want to say that because they say, well, we got 75% of our roster is African American. The reason why there's 75% African American because those are the best employees that you could find in that business that you operate. Not because you want them, but they're the best employees that you can find in that business that you could operate. Just like the early days of the NFL, it was all white. And some of these teams are still owned by the same families. That had all white players, Charlton.
Well, you know,
and the integration of African Americans into the NFL was slow. It was tedious. But racism has always existed, Charlton.
Well, I want to bring this point up because I don't want to be known as a dumb guy on the microphone. There's a lot of them out there. You can probably tune to any channel and find that. But I want to bring this up because in the summertime, a lot of people are looking for work. We talked about the CFL opening up their training camps now, and we have the OTAs with the NFL, and a lot of things happening. And it's all about getting a job. It's about finding work. But I bring this up, Big C, because Donald Trump is under investigation by the FBI. We all know that. But his reach, not only is it trying to destroy this Global 8 Summit by saying we're going to do it our way instead of who cares about the world or who cares if we have clean air and clean water and all that stuff. Now, I look at what's happening with the black dollar. And a lot of people don't even hear about this outside of the black community. But the black dollar, I may be right or wrong between number 7 and 8. If you took the total GNP of every black dollar in the United States of America, it turns over in the black community one time. Once. However, collectively, it would be large enough to be the 7th largest economy in the world. And what I bring it up for is the NFL is trying to become a $27 billion industry by the next, I guess, 2027. So that's about 10 more years. They're doing it on the backs of black labor. Okay, the top college football programs, they go after the black talent. The top high school football programs in the country, they go after the black talent. You're down there in the SEC. Almost everybody's black on all these teams. But when one white person can say, don't hire a black man who cares about the whole diaspora of black Americans, and he says it to NFL owners, and they all shaking their boots, and even the owners and the players know it's wrong, at what point will the African American, as we all get ready for the NBA game in Cleveland, at what point will we exercise our power as a group to say we will not allow you to discriminate openly, and we sit there with our heads between our tails? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, it's hard to get an athlete to walk away from a multi-million-dollar contract, and most of these guys have come from impoverished situations and worked their way up to become some of the elitist financial earners in America.
But what about Damari Smith with the NFLPA?
This is the thing we're looking at more so than anything else, is the financial dividends that these guys receive. They understand there's always going to be sacrificial lambs. We talked about it in baseball with Kurt Floyd. When he took the stance for free agency, never played a game again. He was an 11-year veteran, 10-time All-Star with the St. Louis Cardinals. Never got a job again because he took a stance against the white owners. So he suffered for others to advance. We saw that with Spencer Haywood when he had to challenge the NBA for the early entry into the NBA draft for underclassmen. It took him 2 years of being ostracized outside of the NBA before he could get a chance to play there, Charlton. So this is a situation we have with Colin Kaepernick right now. Colin Kaepernick took a stance for the better good of America. And that's not what America is. As much as people want to think that there's equality and no racism in America, Colin Kaepernick, as much as President Obama did, showed that racism is still nasty in America, that it is very prevalent, because he took a stance, and he took a stance against social and racial injustice. He didn't take a stance against the military. He didn't take a stance against the police, Charlton. He took a stance against racial and social injustice in America. But America said, just like Donald Trump during his campaign, we want to take America back to where it was. Where we had social and racial injustice, and it was accepted, and people could not do anything about it, Charlton, if you were outside the white community. The police enforced it, and that's what the police have been doing, enforcing racial and social injustice in America. We hear about it all the time, Charlton. And when we look at the incarceration rate, that's what it's from. When you look at death by police rate, Charlton, that's what it is. Colin Kaepernick, what he did was brought it to a focal point. And America, being white, controlled by white media, said, we don't like what you're saying about us because it's true, and we can't hide it because everybody now has a cell phone with a camera on it,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's instant social media. So what you're talking about, they've been showing, and you've put a focused spotlight on it, and we don't like that. And because we don't like that, we're going to punish you. So Colin Kaepernick may not play football this year, Charlton, and not because of lack of talent, Charlton, not because he doesn't have the ability to play, but the racism of America will keep Colin Kaepernick out of the NFL. And Colin Kaepernick knew this when he took his stance.
Yeah.
He said it may cost him his endorsement. It may cost him his career. But it was something that needed to be done. And you think about, he's never talked about money.
No.
Even though he's still out there doing the same things that he was doing outside the football arena, Charlton. But America keeps talking about Colin Kaepernick. And hopefully by them keep talking about Colin Kaepernick is that it will keep everybody's eyes on the social injustice that has occurred, and even mainly so towards him. That this racism is there, and the mainstream media won't call it racism, but they know that's what it is because they are the ones who polarize.
Well, let me ask you
the
this.
mainstream media, whether it's the news or the sports broadcasters, they polarize this, and they need to call it what it is. It is ostracizing through racism.
I want to ask you this question, though, because, and we all know it's true, but I want to ask you, in the eyes of white America, I know a lot of decent white men and women that tell me they also believe he's being ostracized because he stood up for black people. But I want to ask you this question from mainstream media and all the mainstream people that we respect. There's a lot we don't respect, but the ones that we do respect, the ones that own NFL teams.
But Charlton, I really don't respect any of them for not admitting to what it is. You can't sit there and lie to everybody every day. You can't sit there and say, well, his talents have diminished. Show me a quarterback, Charlton, that's been signed during the offseason here in the NFL, and there's been more than a dozen signed through free agency that had better talent or numbers than Colin Kaepernick. So when you sit there and say it's because his talents have diminished, well, those other guys shouldn't even be in the NFL if that's the case, because none of those guys that were signed in offseason, Charlton, has the resume of a Colin Kaepernick.
And I won't even look over the fact that Donald Trump, President of the United States, POTUS, when he told all of his good old boys, don't hire this black dude. We've heard that. And I want to bring up this point because I think it's so poignant. If I look at every owner of the NFL, it's disheartening for me to believe that not one of them are conscious enough to understand the plight of black Americans when they draft all of these kids out of college. They have no understanding of sometimes the social economic path that a lot of them took just to get to the NFL. I'm not saying that we can all be only football players. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that 75% of your league, the things that affect their families is what Colin Kaepernick spoke about. And all of them, not one of them said they give a damn. That's really disheartening to believe that. And I bring this point up. There's so much talk on colleges and who's going to play the number one team in the country or the number 5 or whomever. The University of Michigan, I believe they tried to turn away from their affirmative actions for that school. Well, the University of Michigan, the great Jim Harbaugh, their football program, they fly airplanes all over the country to recruit kids. Would you believe that the University of Michigan and many others, they bring in over $100 million a year for their athletic department, and that money is earned by about 80% African American athletes, but they want to do with the affirmative actions clauses that help black kids come to their college. And we see how the NFL, the good old white boy network, they won't hire black guys that are conscious. They just want dumb guys. Would you believe if the Michigan University boycotted, they would be apt to lose over $100 million? Why doesn't any attorney see that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everything is about economics. And I want to go back to this Colin Kaepernick point.
Yeah.
When you think about what he stood up for, you think about last year, the NFL lost a couple of former players in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Will Smith, Super Bowl winner with the New Orleans Saints defensive lineman. Joe McKnight, former running back, played with the Jets out of USC.
Yeah.
They were both from New Orleans, home. And they were killed. They were gunned down in New Orleans, gunned down. And this is what Colin Kaepernick was standing up against.
Yeah, I know that.
Injustice that goes on. These men were gunned down, even though they were gunned down by citizens, but they were gunned down.
Yeah.
One guy, Joe McKnight was gunned down in a road rage by a white pedestrian who had done this type of incident before and got a pass.
Yeah.
Because he had shot someone black before, because he said he felt threatened. We see this too often in America, not just athletes being killed, Trump. We see young kids being killed in parks by police. Because I in America.
Yeah.
Okay? We've seen black kids killed walking around with hoodies on and sold by white retailers in America. Okay? These are the things that we look at. And these are the things that he took a stance on. But, you know, the thing that I'm most appalled about is that people talk about Colin Kaepernick like he's a pariah.
Yeah.
Like he's done something wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong. You know, it's like Tommy Smith and Lee Hines in the '68 Olympics.
Yeah.
They knew what would occur when they raised those black fists. That they would appall a white America to say, how dare you on a world stage show that you have black solidarity. You people are not supposed to be that cognizant and intelligent to have solidarity as a race. And because you're trying to show that you have solidarity as a race, we're going to ban you from all amateur competition for life. Okay?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. Now, a white athlete, Maria Sharapova, can go out and drug enhance herself, go out and get banned for 6 months and come back and play.
After 6 months, yeah.
It's a different standard. But when blacks have stood up, Muhammad Ali stood up, Dalton, against the racial injustice that was being given to the black man during the Vietnam era, that when you look at the ratio of black men that were being drafted versus any other race in America, blacks were being drafted at a higher rate, just like the incarceration rate in America, Charles.
Yeah.
So when we look at it, and the media will not call what it is racism against Colin Kaepernick being ostracized and saying, well, you know, there's teams that haven't touched him and for whatever. Don't sit there and try to create a reason that he has not been signed. It is very evident. It's just not spoken about because you've been told not to touch on the subject by your directors and producers. Don't call racism what it is. Even Roger Goodell knows that it's racism. That's why he has not spoken one time on the subject.
Yeah.
Now you show me one Super Bowl quarterback that Roger Goodell has not talked about in the last 5 years other than Colin Kaepernick, Charlton.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And I mean, even with going back to the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning, who made millions by throwing the football to African-American receivers. And when Donald Trump talked about the stop and frisk mentality and don't hire Colin Kaepernick because he stood up for Black Lives Matter, it wasn't about standing down for the troops. That's a lie. There's a lot of black men in the military, okay, since 1949 when it was integrated between 47 and 49.
Well, Charlton, look at this point. Colin Kaepernick, when he started his stance, he wasn't even a starting quarterback in the NFL, okay?
No.
He was a backup quarterback to Blaine Gabbert at the time. You think about it. You made this issue of a backup quarterback sitting down and not standing.
Yeah.
So that showed how racist it was. Because many other players throughout the season, Charlton, took that same stance that Colin Kaepernick did.
Yeah.
They were defensive linemen. They were defensive backs. They were wide receivers. They were running backs.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they took that same stance that Colin Kaepernick did. But since Colin Kaepernick was one of those people who broke the status quo line of the NFL being a black quarterback, that's what bothered people more so than anything, because it brought more focus to what his stance was than one of those position players.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Those position players, they're not all pro, not all of them, but they still keep a job. You think about the NFL will hire a rapist, a female beater, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, they will hire these guys in a heartbeat, the guys who committed manslaughter. NFL has no problem hiring these people.
Yeah.
But a guy who is standing up against people having this happen to him, they have a problem with that because when they say they had no tolerance league protecting the shield, they will protect the shield against anything other than somebody showing up against the shield, Charlton.
Well, Big C, I think that is so powerful. So I've always wanted to be more than just a guy that read scores because I want to wake up people who are dumb. Sometimes if you're just an ignorant person, you don't know what's happening to you. So you need someone who's at least enlightened to tell you to it. And I just want to bring up one more point before we touch on a few more things like all the other stations do. It sticks in my consciousness. It's just hard for me to believe. I know there are guys like Coach Steve Kerr and Coach Greg Pop and also that good old boy Mark Cuban down in Dallas.
It's a different sport,
it's a different sport, but there's still men in the sports business. And when they stand up for black Americans, that touches me. I know it's in the heart of white men. I just can't believe that no white man has the prescience to see what Colin Kaepernick was talking about and act like they don't give a darn if what he says is going to help keep kids safe, because I have black kids also, and I want to always bring that up as long as I have a breath. But I just hope that some people can realize that we're all closer and stronger together. I think sports will do what politics will never do. Sports will always bring people together. There are always going to be dumb sports guys and smart dumb sports guys. There'll be dumb sports stations and smart sports stations. I hope that we can kind of blend them all so we can all make life better for everybody else. I just want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. When you need sports insurance, tweet out to Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. We go through Ben and Mark. They've been around for half a century. We got you covered whether you're a pro athlete, a collegiate athlete, you're a high school athlete, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. We can also insure you on several continents. Big C, as we stick with the NFL, just a few things came up, and we talked about the Kaepernick issue. I want to say out here in Oakland, Beast Mode put on a show for some of the local fans that like Raider football. It's a shame they're going to be gone in 2 years. But I think there's so much energy around what Beast Mode is bringing to this Raider organization. And I still say that even with him bringing it to the organization about what they do on the field, he has been such an advocate for the community of Oakland, making sure that young kids have something to eat, Big C. That's not talked about as much as Steve Kerr's back issue. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to look at even when Colin Kaepernick was playing, they didn't talk about the issues of what he did off the field as far as aiding the community.
Yeah.
Same with Marshawn Lynch, Charlton. When you think about African Americans donating their money and their time into their local communities,
well, yeah.
These are not the things that are touched upon by the media, because the media only wants you to know the African American as an athlete, Charlton, not a person with a social conscience who goes out and assists and aids communities. It's just like when you watch an NBA game right now, and they have this commercial saying the NBA cares when he opened up a media center.
Oh, yeah.
Normally those are the players from the local team that goes in and do that, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's not the NBA. The NBA just puts their logo on top of that, Charlton. But that money and that donation and that drive come from those players in those local communities.
Yeah.
And you've seen that with Marshawn Lynch. Even when he wasn't a Raider, Charlton, he was a valid participant in that East Bay community, where he aided and assisted so many youth over the years that he's been playing in NFL, Charlton. And you can go into any community where there's NFL players and NFL teams, and you'll see that from the African American side, Charlton, because these players know where they came from, and they felt if they had a little more assistance when they were younger, that they may even be better than what they are today. And so they have to reach back and help the youth. We always talk about how athletes go out and do that extra bit, where teams don't always get that notoriety for doing it, because they don't all participate on the level that athletes do. But it should never be always called upon the athletes to go back and do this for the communities when we have so much corporate and team money out there, Charlton, in America, where they can do these things daily, but everybody's about the bottom line. I've always praised the athletes for going back, assisting the youth in whatever they can, in a mentoring program, in a food program, Charlton, in an educational program. These are the things that help keep communities strong and solid. We just don't get enough of it, and especially the athletes are not notarized enough for doing what they do.
Well, Big C, that's a very good point. So hopefully more corporate sponsors will step up and start assisting these young athletes all over the country that do that. I want to just touch on another African-American quarterback that also was much maligned by media just because of what happened in the Super Bowl, where he was being he was being jobbed by one of the guys for the Denver Broncos. Instead of saying something stupid that would have been talked about for 10 years, Cam Newton got up and kind of walked away from the stage. But he's had some issues last year with his surgery, and Coach Ron Rivera said that Cam Newton's actually ahead of schedule in his rehabilitation from shoulder surgery, which is some of the same issues that Colin Kaepernick had when a lot of people said that his performance went down. I just want to get your thoughts on a former MVP, Cam Newton, won a national championship in college football with Auburn. I believe he also won a national championship in junior college football. So all the guy has done is win. But he did come under a lot of, media hate for walking away and not saying the wrong thing. They knocked him for doing that. And I think there was Tom Brady that didn't say much either after his jersey was taken after last year's Super Bowl. Can you just draw the comparison, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's always been that double standard, Charlton, is that you're not going to ask the harsh questions of a white quarterback. If you think about the questions that were asked of Matt Ryan last year after his Super Bowl debacle against the New England Patriots, being up by so many and not handing off the about it. You feel me?
Yeah.
Nobody in the white media asked Matt Ryan that question.
Yeah.
They sort of just let it go under the table. They didn't berate him, but yet everybody wanted to berate Cam Newton for his performance against the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos had an outstanding defense, the best in the NFL at the time.
Yeah.
The defense for the New England Patriots was not as good as the Denver Broncos defense, Charles.
Yeah.
But everybody gave Matt Ryan a pass after the butt whipping that he took from New England in the
Well,
game last year. You're up 28-3 at halftime, okay?
Yeah.
28-3. And you can't put a team away because you become selfish as the quarterback. And everybody in the media saw that Matt Ryan was being selfish, that he wanted to guarantee himself the MVP of the Super Bowl instead of handing the ball off to Freeman and Coleman and letting those guys do what they did, trash the New England defense in the first half.
Yeah.
He got to the point where I want to outduel Tom Brady. But no one said that to him in the press conference, Charlton. They gave him a pass. They were easy on it.
Yeah.
They gave him questions even you could answer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know, right.
There was nothing tough about it.
Yeah.
But Cam Newton was beat up by the media. They wanted to blame him for everything.
Yeah.
They wanted to blame him for the fumbles, for the interceptions, for the missed tackles. He only played on one side of the ball.
Yeah.
But they act like he played on both sides of the ball. And that's the double standard that the media gives the black quarterback and the white quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody in the white media right now beating up on Andrew Luck. And he's had a lackluster past two seasons, okay, John?
Yeah.
Very lackluster. But no one's saying anything about Andrew Luck is on the downside. Maybe he's washed up.
Yeah.
He's not going to pan out as the best quarterback in NFL history, even though he's making $144 million. No one's giving him a tough time in the media.
No.
But as you spoke about Cam Newton,
Yeah.
people are still on Cam Newton. Andrew Luck has to get to a Super Bowl first. He
Yeah.
has to be put in the same class with a Cam Newton.
In fact, I think Andrew Luck makes more money than any quarterback in the NFL, and he hasn't snapped the ball in almost 2 seasons, I believe. He hasn't completed a whole season in a very long time. I think that when they had the beat down that I think they started Deflategate back in the day when he had I think they were beat 41-7, I believe, by New England.
Yeah, that's his last complete season, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Deflategate.
And that started Deflategate.
He's gotten a $144 million payday because of that, Jonathan. But you think about 2 years ago when Hasselbeck won 4 games,
Yeah.
and Andrew Luck only won 2 as a starter in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And then last year they missed the playoffs again as him being the starter. So at what point will Andrew Luck reach that crescendo of people saying they say he's an elite quarterback?
Yeah.
But when will he show that he's an elite quarterback by getting into the championship, Jonathan, into the Super Bowl?
Yeah, you got to show me.
Quarterbacks like Colin Kaepernick
Yeah.
and Cam Newton have been.
Well, I think even when you look at Seattle, they signed Austin Davis, who spent last season as a backup with the Denver Broncos. They released him in December, and I think he started 10 games in the last 5 years, and Pete Carroll has brought him on as a backup. Says that he'd look at Colin Kaepernick if Wilson got injured, but he and also the good old boy that coaches the Baltimore Ravens, Harbaugh's brother, said that he would also think that Kaepernick is a starter in the NFL, but you have guys that haven't won but maybe 10 games in 5 years. They're all getting signed, Big C. Again, I don't think you can ever get away from race. I just want to bring up this gentleman for intelligent people. His name is Tim Wise, and he wrote a book about, white lies and how there's a bias in our system. And you can't fix any medical issue without your doctor diagnosing you. The only way they can cure you is when they have a diagnosis first. So Tim Wise, I hope that we can solve that issue when it comes to that. And because if we don't, then it's going to go on for the next generation to try to solve. I want to bring up this issue also, Big C. And it's unfortunate because I hate when young college kids get involved in this. But Mixon was all over the news, and there was a kid out of Ohio State also had some issues. 3 Michigan State football players, they were charged with alleged campus of sexual assault. Alleged, okay? But they're charged, and they're going to have to appear in court. Now, I don't want to mention the names because I want to protect them and give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's ironic when we have a president that mentions and brags about sexual assault, never went to trial, never got arrested, never got prosecuted. You had 3 young athletes. We just started talking about how they bring in over $100 million for the athletic department with Michigan, Michigan State, a lot of schools around the country for the top 25 programs. And here are kids who are not being given the benefit of the doubt. They're all over the paper. They haven't admitted this. POTUS had admitted what he'd done, as well as Bill O'Reilly at Fox News. How do we tell young athletes? And of course, we always talk about protecting women. But when you're accused of something, you have to defend yourself. How can we tell young athletes when their names all over the paper about something that's just alleged, Big C? How do we keep them safe? Because we have to keep the victim safe, of course, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, when you're a white millionaire, you get that privilege. And you mentioned two of them, Donald Trump, Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly was paid $25 million for committing sexual misconduct and alleged assault against women in Fox News.
Yeah.
And so they paid him $25 million. And Fox News also paid out $75 million to the women.
Wow.
So somebody was wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
But, you know, to be rewarded with $25 million for sexual misconduct and you're white, why would you not do it, Jonathan? And I'm not saying it's right to women, but I'm saying from a reward,
they get a pass.
White male,
Yeah.
you get to become president for committing sexual assault. You get a $25 million payout for committing sexual assault. That's a pretty good gig for a white man in America when you look at it.
Yeah,
okay?
and the fact that the same... Yeah.
And you look at these young athletes at Michigan State, their scholarships were yanked.
Yeah.
They haven't been to court or anything.
No.
They haven't been convicted.
No.
But their scholarships were yanked. So them with any possibility of playing Big Ten football is over with now, Charlton. And now they have to go in and fight for their lives in court over these allegations. And I'm not saying if these allegations are found that it's right. It never should be any crime or any heinous act against a woman in America. Anywhere in the world, Charlton.
Exactly.
But, you know, here it is. These guys are thrown in as sacrificial lambs where rich white Americans receive several $1 million every time they're accused of these things.
And that's the thing with Donald Trump under investigation by the FBI, saying don't hire a black guy for defending Black Lives Matter, get to sexually assault women, and there's still people in America that voted for him, and he has a job trying to destroy the country, Big C. Whether you believe Democrat or Republican, yeah.
A lot of people that work for Sears and a lot of people that work for Kmart voted for him also.
Yeah.
Now how do they feel when they're closing 74 more stores, and there were 78 more stores, and they closed 114
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year as he took over as president, and so it's going to be close to 200 stores in total for those people who voted for Donald Trump, who was going to make America great again.
Yeah.
Now that they're on the unemployment line and looking at him, will he recognize these people, Charlton? Will he come and be their savior like he was with Courier? Will he go bail out Sears? Will he go bail out Kmart? No, he won't, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's what we spoke about months ago on our show. And anybody who listens to our show understands what I say when I mean this. If you have a kid and you have a fruit tree in your backyard, that kid can only pick the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
You can't go get the good fruit up on top that's already ripe from the sun.
Yeah.
That's where Donald Trump's equation as president has been in signing all these executive orders. He's knocking out all that low-hanging fruit that hasn't gotten ripe that's really not going to help anybody out nutritionally, okay?
Yeah.
All that ripe fruit at the top of the tree he can't reach because he's so self-centered on creating a legacy for himself and not helping the American public. And if you think I'm wrong, sit around for a couple more months and watch what has occurred with him. There has been nothing since he's been president that anybody can put their finger on and say that it has benefited the American public as a whole.
Well, Big C, he did keep a promise. He said he's gonna trim the fat. He's trying to cut food programs for poor kids in the United States of America, not in Russia. Russian kids have better opportunity to get fed when they go to school than kids in the United States of America because of Paul Ryan and the great Donald Trump. For all you guys who voted for him, make sure you can feed your kids because he doesn't care if they eat or not. And that's a fact. All you have to do is Google it. Big C, I want to bring up this thought also. When we talk about sports mixing with the politics, one of my favorite actors in the world, and I don't know if they listen to us or if it's just circumstance, it may be just a coincidence, but the great Al Pacino, he's doing a movie where he's playing the late Joe Paterno with Penn State. We just talked about Michigan State. We talked about the University of Michigan. Their athletic program brings in over $100 million a year on black labor. Google it. It's a fact. The same thing with Penn State. The same thing Michigan State. All over the country. Alabama, USC, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. They all do it on the backs of black labor. So here's Joe Paterno. You know, the late Joe Paterno, we know what happened with the scandal with Sandusky at Penn State. And the great Al Pacino is going to shine some light on that story from the Hollywood angle. One of the best actors in the history of the world. and we talked about sports, politics, in Hollywood. Well, the great Al Pacino also, just another, coincidence that Big C Sports has been saying this for a long time. Talk about your thoughts on the great Al Pacino doing a role in this movie where he's going to bring that to light, sexual assault. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Al Pacino's taken on a very demanding role, Charles. As a matter of fact, the three top heads from Penn State were just sentenced yesterday to time in prison, to at least 2 years each in prison and 2 years of parole. So when you think about where Al Pacino's going, we've seen him in sports movies before, Charles. Any Given Sunday with Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
He played a tremendous role with Dennis Quaid also in that movie, and Cameron Diaz. So he knows the role of a coach in a sports film. And him taking on this role of Joe Paterno, there's a great likeness physically between the two, Charlton, at the age that Al Pacino is now. But to bring light, I think this is a very brave movie that is being made on sexual assault in America on its kids, because this has been a situation that has been going on far too long in America. There's a professor in Silicon Valley who created some software, for computers to show that, to be able to track predators as they're chasing kids online. And so, the world is making greater advancements when you think about Silicon Valley and to help this out. But, this situation with Jerry Sandusky at Penn State, it went well beyond him. It went to other assistant coaches. It went to Joe Paterno, went to the administrative staff, Charlton, that these predators preyed on kids. Joe Paterno may have won a lot of football games as a head coach, Charlton, but he also harmed a lot of youth lives as a head coach because he turned back on his friend who was committing sexual assault and said, hey, I just don't want to know about it. But to sit back and not have the conscience, and we talk about social conscience. Think about if Colin Kaepernick had been witnessing something like that, Charlton.
Oh, wow.
They would have charged him with assisted sexual assault, aiding and abetting. Colin Kaepernick would have been criminally charged, where Joe Paterno was not, for aiding and abetting, and the other assistant coaches there also, Charlton, who had witnessed this and reported it only to Joe Paterno. They had a fiduciary duty to go to law enforcement, Charlton, which they did not. So everybody covered up at Penn State. Everybody was aiding and abetting in child molestation at Penn State, a very heinous crime by one of the largest institutions in the Northeast, Charlton. And this went on for decades.
And people knew about it.
Everybody felt that it was okay. So I'm glad that Al Pacino is bringing light to this, Charlton, because too often in America, that people turn their back on those that are solely in need. Colin Kaepernick did not turn his back.
No.
Joe Paterno turned his back, and people still thought of him as a hero, and he would have kept his job if he'd have been younger.
And ironically, Big C, before we get to the little bit of the NBA, before we close, it's just a shame that guys like Jerry Sandusky and the late Joe Paterno could have a job in the sports business for one of the top conferences in the United States of America, and people had a statue of Joe Paterno. But Colin Kaepernick stands up for Black Lives Matter, and no white man will give him a job.
But you think about this, Charlton. Joe Paterno didn't even stand up for kids' lives matter.
No.
Think about that.
No.
He did not stand up for kids' lives matter. All he cared about was the athletes that he could put on the field and win him games. The little boys he didn't care about. They could be sexually assaulted. It was okay in his life. And he was the guy that's talking about he was a rogue Catholic. But it was okay to molest young boys in his presence. Under his watch, Charlton, he's paying a guy hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to molest kids, and turning his back on it, and everybody was thinking of him as a hero.
And ironically, you haven't heard POTUS, even though it happened before Donald Trump was president, Donald Trump that also started the birther movement. Donald Trump inauspiciously said nothing about the sexual assault that went on at Penn State. Not one thing came out of his mouth that I recall. If I'm wrong, just Google it. The same way he talked about grabbing women by the vagina, he said nothing about that. Now just look at the coincidence. Bragging about grabbing women by the genitalia, the sexual assault that went on at Penn State, and they get canonized as saints at a statue in the stadium in Happy Valley. Colin Kaepernick can't get a job for not even doing anything close to that, Big C. And I just want people to Google that, because what we talk about on Big C Sports is real. I'm so proud of Al Pacino, one of the best actors in the history of acting, to take on a sports role, because we talk about sports, politics, and all that blends together. So I hope the movie's going to be great, because it's still happening to this day where a woman is assaulted every 20 seconds in society. In the great land of the free and the home of the brave, the one that has the president that says you can grab women by the vagina and get away with it, people in this country are still suffering. Most of them are white women. But he got most of the white vote, so that's something internally they got to deal with. But I just want to bring that up because we're supposed to talk about things that matter. Big C, as we close out, I want to get your thoughts on what's happening in the world of the NBA. So many people in Las Vegas, ironically, they have a 3-point spread, okay? If that's fool's gold, if I ever saw fool's gold, and believe me, I bet on some fool's gold in the past, Big C. I'll never do that again, okay? But they have a 3-point spread over a team that lost by almost 20 points in their first 2 games average. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think the biggest problem with the Cleveland while they were in Oakland, Charlton, is marijuana is legal in California.
Yeah, wait, no.
There were some fumes coming out of the
That was the coal mines. That was the coal mines in Oakland, Big C. That's what you're smelling.
But when you think about the medicinal purposes of that, pharmaceutical scenario that is legal in California that the NBA is looking into, as far as making it a universal thing across the league, it may have been one of those things that they were out there and they could get a hold to a little more than what they needed. But,
we can't confirm or deny that, Big Z. Can't confirm or deny.
Nevertheless, it's hard to compete with what the Warriors are doing right now, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're playing basketball at a level that people have not seen probably ever.
Yeah.
Even when they won the 73 games, Charlton, because they have added another weapon to their arsenal that you can't compete against.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, how do you find an answer for it?
Yeah.
The thing I looked at in the game the other night, Charlton, is that Cleveland was just gassed.
Yeah.
They were. They're not used to playing at the tempo that Golden State can make you play at. This reminds me of Nolan Richardson, the former head coach at the University of Arkansas.
Well, 48 minutes of hell, something like that?
40 minutes of hell.
Yeah.
Back when they won the national championship down in Charlotte, and we had the former president
Bill Clinton
of Arkansas there in the stands.
Yeah.
But, this reminds me of what they did. They said, you may come out and play, but you're going to catch 40 minutes of hell. That's what you told the Golden State Warriors. You're catching 48 minutes of hell right now because they're playing 10 deep. And that's an uncanny move in the NBA, Charlton, to play 10 players deep. And that's what the other media is not recognizing.
Yeah.
They want to talk about Durant. They want to talk about Curry, throwing a little Draymond, and Clay found his shot the other night.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a team that's 10 deep. You talked about McGee coming off the bench, Charlton, being instant offense.
He's amazing.
Impact. You're not getting that from the bench in Cleveland where players are coming in, making an instant impact. Andre Iguodala, knocking down the three to end the quarter, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
To put basically a dagger in that opposing team. So you bring in David West and a couple of young players, Charlton. So when you go 10 deep, no one's getting tired. You saw, Steph Curry laying over there, looked like he was taking a nap.
Yeah. He's a Zen master, Big Z. He was focusing on his Zen powers, Big Z.
But, I'm looking at Cleveland, Charlton, and they're going home with their backs against the wall, and everybody is saying right now, well, they were down 0-2 last year. That was last year.
Yeah.
When you look at these two different teams now this year, Charlton, they're made up of different composites.
Yeah.
Neither one of these are the teams that they were last year.
Yeah.
Golden State got better through free agency. Cleveland did not get better through free agency. Cleveland cannot play a big game with Golden State because they have no one that can run with these players. When you look at the size of the lineup, Draymond Green reminds me so much of Dennis Rodman.
Oh, yeah.
When Dennis played when he was in his prime with the Pistons and the Bulls.
But Dennis couldn't shoot.
The same type of player, Charlton.
Defensively, yeah, but Dennis couldn't shoot offensively, Big C. He's no comparison offensively, but defensively, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, no, Charlton, he would get you points. You look around, Dennis would have 10 or 12 points because he would get them inside off the offensive boards, even driving to the basket.
Yeah.
Dennis scored quiet points, but he was such a presence on the floors that everybody knew that he was there every game. He brought his antics to the game, but everybody knew he was there.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with the Draymond Green, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when I look at Cleveland and you look at J.R. Smith, who hasn't scored in the last 96 minutes, that's a long drop.
Yeah.
JR, is a guy that's normally shooting from the locker room.
Maybe
right now, there's a little discombobulation in the Cleveland sequence of what they're doing offensively.
Yeah.
If Kevin Love is getting his shots, then J.R. Smith is not getting his shots.
Wow.
And Kyrie Irving, when he has the basketball in his hands, he eats up a lot of clock.
Oh, yeah.
As well as LeBron James does. So it doesn't give you that time to kick the ball out to the other players when LeBron is handling the ball and Kyrie is handling the ball. They got to decide which one is going to be the point guard and which one is going to be the shooter. They both can't be point guards because between them, they're eating up 18 seconds of clock every time they're down the floor.
Yeah.
And Tristan Thompson is just not giving them anything offensively.
No.
So they got to find a way, Charlton, to get some points out of somebody else, whether it's Jefferson, whether it's Fry. They got to find somebody, Scheffler. Somebody has to come in and give Cleveland 20 points off the bench. Because if they can't get 20 points off the bench from one of these players, Charlton, this series will be a sweep.
Well, we talked about Thompson having the Kardashian curse, Big C. One of the good old boys also mentioned it on the NBA show. I thought it was funny. We're the only ones to talk about it. I think it was the good old boy that played with Cleveland back, not Cleveland, but Detroit back in the day talked about that too. I just want to say a few things before we get your final thoughts, Big C. In the Major League Baseball, we have St. Louis favorite over Cincinnati, Atlanta's favorite over Philly, Milwaukee's favorite over the Giants, Chicago's favorite over Miami. You have Arizona, their favorite over San Diego. Washington is favorite over Los Angeles. It's a shame that San Diego has a baseball team, but no more football. That's just crazy. In the American League, New York's favorite over Boston. Tampa Bay is favorite over Chicago. Detroit's favorite over Los Angeles. Kansas City, their favorite slightly over Houston. Toronto's favorite over the Oakland A's. Seattle's favorite over Minnesota. We have Baltimore favorite over Pittsburgh. The Mets are favorite over Texas. And Cleveland's favorite over Colorado, Big C. Again, as we close out, we know that Golden State's a 3-point favorite, which is fool's gold for you good old boys down south. Don't fall for it, okay? 3 points was a joke. But, Big C, I want to get your thoughts on what you're looking forward to coming up this week. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, with Charlton, as we look at it, I'm looking for the series with the Predators and the Penguins to pick back up, Charlton. The Predators right now have all the advantage, winning the last 2 games. Now the Penguins are on the defensive. This is not a position that they're used to being in, losing 2 consecutive games. But, now that the Predators have made a game and a series of this, Charlton, this is uncharted water. First time being in the Stanley Cup in their 18, 19-year existence. This is a team with momentum and exciting. And that's the one thing in sports. When a team gets momentum, Charlton, and is playing with house money, they're a hard team to beat. And like we said, we're talking about the NBA series going back to Cleveland. And everybody keeps talking about last year. Well, last year the Warriors won 73 games, and they didn't repeat that this year.
That's true.
It's a different horse. And you think about the success that they've had over their last 32 games, Charlton. They're 31-1 in their last 32 games. That's a bit ironic, and they're 14-0 in the playoffs. They're in uncharted territory. They're in a place that, is rarefied air. And that's an intimidating thing within itself. Cleveland right now is questioning himself. LeBron James, yes, he will always be considered the greatest player on the planet while he's there. But the greatest player can't beat the greatest team. That's the difference that you're looking at. And when you're looking at one player trying to dominate, when you can have 3 players equally as well as that one who is trying to dominate, that gives you an advantage for the team. And losing by 19 points in that last game, Charlton, has Cleveland questioning himself. And like I said, they looked gasped in the third quarter when you looked at LeBron on the sidelines trying to catch his breath. You're normally not seeing LeBron like that, but he's having to expend so much energy defensively. He's in that place that he's not used to being in. If the Warriors keep that pressure on, this series will be over in less than 5, Charlton.
Well, Big C, you say it like nobody else. We brought you politics, we brought you sports, we brought you the great Al Pacino. We talked about how to keep women safe. We're always going to talk about it every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports have then voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never any reason to ever assault a woman. No woman should ever have to go through that garbage. If you see any woman in trouble, just call 911 so she won't have to deal with it on her own. And as we tell you on every Big C Sports program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.